I'm recording. Okay, so moderator training. So we're going to quickly go over, we've already done our welcome introductions. We'll go over again what voter services is, and then we'll get into the meat of being a moderator. And we're going to concentrate today on how to moderate a program that is specific to the League of Women Voters of Arlington Heights, Mount Prospect, and Buffalo Grove. We have a history of doing these 20 plus years, and we've gotten this down to what I think is a science and runs very well. There's a little bit of difference when we get on Zoom, and I'll try to address those. So the voter services person, so what Lisa Slanker does, what that team does is that basically they've figured out who is running, what are the races that cover our area. They've sent them letters inviting them to this forum. They've sent them rules, and they have gotten those rules back and signed. So we don't let a person participate until they have agreed to rules. So for instance, this past weekend, Kat was going to moderate a race where in the end, like literally the week before the program, one of the candidates dropped out. And so then we cancel the whole thing. We don't often have what's called an empty chair debate, meaning one of the candidates doesn't show up, because in the end, we are a nonpartisan organization. We've never endorsed a candidate. We've never endorsed a party. And those empty chair debates can be seen as League giving that particular candidate or party our blessing. So we try to stay away from those. So what really is the difference between a forum and a debate? Well, most of you have probably seen debates that are on television, you know, the presidential debates. And the way those work is that you've got a moderator who asks a question, and they might ask it of one person, but they don't necessarily ask all of the candidates that same question. The other thing is, you'll notice in those debates, oftentimes there's a lot of interrupting. And if you've ever listened, I've listened to a couple podcasts in the last year about how these candidates go about their races. And they'll say, I mean, it's a skilled art in how to interrupt each other and essentially not even really answer the question and get in what they think are the talking points. That's why we don't like debates, because we want to ask each and every candidate the exact same question. So it can't be a question that's only for one party or the other, or only one candidate or another. It has to be a question that all of them can answer. Because sometimes when we're doing these, we're doing primary races where we might have 6 or 7 candidates, you know, running in the primary. So right now, this is the actual race, so we only have 2 candidates. I mean, if we had a third party, we would have, you know, multiple, but right now we just have 2. So that's really the big difference, is that they are given the same question. They're all allowed to answer it. They also don't talk back to each other. They just answer the question. Now, they are allowed a certain number of what is called rebuttals. Lisa, remind me, how many rebuttals are they allowed? 2 or 1?
We usually allow them 2 for the entire thing. They can use them on the same question, or they can use them on different questions. And that's up to the moderator to decide if they want to allow that. So you let them know at the beginning, and that's not in the script because that's pretty much what you discuss with them beforehand, if there'll be a rebuttal. If you're comfortable allowing rebuttals, then they can raise their hand on the Zoom and you can do it, and then just keep track of how many they did. And then the rebuttals, I believe, are 30 seconds.
30 seconds, yes, they are 30 seconds. Okay, so, okay, there we go. So now let's get into what the moderator does. So the moderator is there to ask the questions. Now, in some cases, and this is usually the case, especially when it's live. When it's via Zoom, things kind of change a little bit. But oftentimes when I'm moderating, I'll make sure that I have a couple of questions at the ready that I can ask that are sort of generic. I will say our team, Lisa, her husband, Connie Weissman, Mary Allen, they are incredibly good at making sure that the moderator has questions.
Yeah, we will do that this time. We'll do it on the chat and we'll send you like 3 to 5 before it starts. And then we'll continue to supply them throughout.
And so that chat is, they'll just chat directly to you. It will not be seen by anybody else so that the candidates cannot see them. Now, while this is happening, so in a live forum, what happens is everybody's sitting in the audience and we've got, you know, about 6 volunteers running up and down the aisles with 3x5 cards, handing them out and taking questions live. Then we run them back to Bill and Lisa and Connie, and they go through those questions and decide, oh, look, we've got like 5 questions on gun violence prevention. We've got 6 questions on climate change. And they start to make some decisions about how they are going to prioritize those questions as they come to you, the moderator. And I will say I have worked candidate forums. I've been the moderator at a candidate forum where the question sorters basically just handed me the cards and I had to sit there and do what our team does for our moderators. But that is something that I feel like you guys can do pretty well. So the rules that we have for the moderator is that you're not involved in any way with any of the candidates, either by close personal relationship or otherwise, or maybe working on the campaign. That we don't want somebody to be moderating who has a public persona and is very well known on their particular issues. For instance, I probably wouldn't use our environmental chair to do a candidate forum because it's well known how they feel about the environment as an issue. We expect, you know, so there's a little bit of being able to think on the fly and handle problems as they come up. And one of the reasons I will say, I really think that young people are not often given the chance to do this, but I actually think y'all are probably better equipped than we are. Some of us that are older, because you understand the technology better than we do. You are well versed on Zoom especially, but that has made you so that you're able to multitask and pay attention to several things at once. I think that those of you who've been on the speech team, I just know that you've been trained to do this. And then we make it so that you cannot be a voter in that particular district. That's why Kat cannot be the moderator for this particular forum this weekend, is because she's old enough to vote. Now Felix, this is actually Felix's district, but he can't vote. He's not 18. Louisa, you can't vote. You're not 18. Lucy can't vote. She's not 18. So you don't have what I would call a dog in the fight. Okay, so the format is as follows. So they're given an opening statement. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to figure out who goes first. Now what Kat did, so if we're in person, you can have them draw straws, you could flip a coin, there are a couple different ways, right? Now we're all virtual. So what Kat did was she had a app for a coin flip. And so what you'll want to do is, and I did this yesterday when I was doing a Girl Scout meeting. I actually picked I had 2 straws, and I asked them to pick, you know, actually, well, I had 1 more straw than there were people. So you have 3 straws. And I said, okay, pick which straw. And then I pulled that out and put it to the side. Okay, pick which straw. Okay, pull that out, put it to the side. And then that was how I decided who went first, right? So you as the moderator decide, you have to figure out how, and I'm not going to micromanage you. You guys are smart individuals. How are you going to figure out who goes first? So that person, so let's say it is the Tom Morrison, Maggie Trevor. Let's say Tom draws the lot and he goes first. So he gives his opening statement, and he's timed for a minute. And on the screen, what you will have, so in real life, what it is the candidates are facing an audience and you're facing the audience. And then we have timers that sit in the audience facing you. On Zoom, it's a little different. We're going to have a screen for the timer, a screen for each candidate, a screen for the moderator. Louisa, as the MC, you'll have a screen, but then as soon as you're done, you'll turn your camera off and go off screen. And then we have an ASL interpreter. We've started having our events and programs interpreted by an American Sign Language interpreter. So the timer has a screen and she holds up a sign that will say 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, stop. So your job is not to time them. You don't have to worry about the time. The timer is doing that. But if they keep talking, now you allow them to finish their sentence-ish, right? Their thought. Maybe it's a thought. You as the moderator, this is where you have to do some critical thinking and decide, okay, nope, I'm going to ask you to stop, right? Now, the great thing about Zoom is that you will have me off camera, you won't even see me, Emily Lasky, I'll have another emerging leader. All we're doing is controlling what's going on the tech, right? We're streaming it to Facebook, it's being recorded. That guy keeps talking, I'm gonna mute him, right? That's what's gonna happen. So that's an advantage, but we don't have, in a live version, you don't have that. So they get a minute, no, is it 2 minutes? 2 minutes for opening statement, correct? So they get their opening statement and they know this, they're given this as the rule. They give their 2 minutes for opening statements. So Tom goes first for his opening statement. Then Miss Trevor goes. Then you just start alternating. And this is where, and I will send you a grid that might help you keep track, because even though it's only 2 people, Kat might be able to tell you that it's easy to get lost about who's going next, right? Because you're thinking about so many things, right?
Yeah, especially on Zoom, I found it very difficult to keep track of things. And I know you sent me the grid and I was trying to pay attention to that, but just with so much going on,
yeah,
it kind of escaped my mind. So I think it's very helpful, especially in the Zoom format, to keep track of who's going to talk when, and then actually prompt that candidate to speak, because they're just as confused as you are. That's what I learned the other day.
And you want to refer to them as candidate Morrison, candidate Trevor. Even though it's really Representative Morrison, we try to even the playing field by calling them all candidate. Not Mr., not Mrs., not Ms., not whatever, it's candidate. And so then you start asking your questions. And so the number of questions that you can ask, you would think that you could just divide, because they each get a minute to answer. You'd think you'd be able to divide the amount of time left by 2 minutes, right? And be able to know exactly how many questions you can ask. But what will happen is they might have a very short answer. And so that, it doesn't take quite as much time. Or they might, if you as the moderator decide to allow for rebuttals, and I think rebuttals are interesting. So I kind of like a rebuttal.
And they can also ask for it to be reread again, the question.
Right. So they might say, oh, can you please repeat that question? And then you just repeat the question. And so then you just look at the time, and we will try to give you a cue, right? We'll say, all right, and then you can say, okay, this will be the last question. And you want to try to make it so that now you want Maggie Trevor to give her closing first, right? So that you alternate it, right? So you work the time so that the last person to answer first is Morrison, and that way Maggie Trevor gets to do her closing statement first. Does that make sense, or am I as clear as mud?
Wait, so the order of the closing statement is the opposite of the opening statement, right?
Correct.
Okay. And
so that's our way of making it as absolutely fair and impartial as we possibly can. Nobody can say, oh, well, he got to go first. Well, you alternated. One of you got opening statement first and one of you got closing statement first, right? And the same is true with those questions. It's not always the same person answering first, because it's kind of like, and this is probably a bad analogy, but most of you know I used to do fitness classes. And when you teach fitness classes, you tend to always start on your strong side, your right side, and end on your left side. And that's why your left side stays weak and your right side stays strong, is because you're constantly starting. So a good instructor will try to alternate which side goes first. It's really the same concept. Probably a bad analogy, but it's what I got. Okay. So like we said, they get 2 minutes on their opening statement. These are rules. They've already signed this. They already know. But if you were to do another leagues or, another forum of some kind, you would want to know in advance. These would be questions you would want to ask. How long have they been given for their opening statements? And if they haven't been given a time, then you should decide a time. You don't want it to be open-ended. Well, you're becoming a moderator right now. So I don't ascribe to the league thought that this is the world's hardest thing. I just don't. And I think just the fact that you're willing to do this tells me that you are most likely capable of being able to do this. But I also believe you will never learn how to do something if you don't just go ahead and jump in and do it, right? So, but observing and watching other candidate forums, I think I had sent you guys another one. The thing is and Kat is really great at this, even if you mess up, you just keep going, right? I mean, it's progress, not perfection. It's never going to be perfect. And just be confident. They're more nervous. They have way more at stake than you do. They're the ones with the stuff at stake. So they should be nervous. Let's see. So how do I think I addressed this a little bit earlier, but every league or every organization might do their questions a little bit differently. Like we have been involved with some forums where we've worked with students to get those questions in advance. So all of the questions are decided before the forum actually starts. That is an exception to the rule for us as a league. We really like to get questions from the people who have taken the time to show up for that particular forum. So we will be taking questions live. They will be emailing them and texting them. The reason we don't want to use the Q&A or use the chat is that becomes a distraction on Zoom, as far as I'm concerned. At this point, I have done enough Zoom to recognize that when that chat is going, you are not paying attention to anything that is being said.
Yeah.
So we don't allow candidates to ask questions of each other. We don't have a panel of questioners. Because we have a team of people that is what we call question sorters, that they're going through the questions and modifying them as needed. For instance, they might take a question, they might take a statement, because people love to make statements at candidate forums, and that's not a question, but they may turn it into a question. Or they may see that they get 3 or 4 questions that are very similar and then turn them into one question. So you're getting this big advantage. Like I said, sometimes you might not get. I worked a forum where I was just handed cards and I had to figure it out on the fly, like sitting up there talking to the people. It was a lot. But I know that if I can do it, you guys can do it, because you're way smarter than I am. So again, we ask the exact same question of every candidate, and we went over this. It's a random draw. And then at the end, they're given 2 minutes for a closing statement. So 2 to open, 2 to close, 1 minute for each question. And it seems like 1 minute isn't enough time, but it really is. They need to keep it concise, right? We need our lawmakers to be concise. So some of these are basically how you deal if this is live, because this is a webinar. This is not a meeting. We don't hold this as a meeting. So the people who are watching, that you can't hear them, you can't see them. It's awesome. But in the real world, if we were live, well, we've actually had to have a police officer escort a person out of a forum because they got unruly. You will have people get up in the middle of it and in a huff and leave. People are not, if this is live, we don't allow, they can't have a shirt on that says something about the candidate. They can't have a button. They can't have a sticker, nothing. No electioneering inside the forum room. That's like sacrosanct. Like that's our little church, and y'all can't mess with it. And we try to keep this, there's no sense in attacking each other. And have we had, Lisa, I can't remember. I don't think we've had a forum that got nasty.
The Rolling Meadows one was the closest.
Yeah.
Remember, that was where the guy was, they were worried about it to begin with, and that was the closest we had, but we weren't running that one. We were just helping.
Yeah, so that's the one thing that a good moderator can kind of keep things down. And I find, when I did this forum, there was a moment where it got a little tense, and I threw in a little, I think I made some self-deprecating comment or made a joke about something, and that kind of stopped it and helped it to move on. So don't be, afraid to do that. And don't be afraid to be direct by saying, we here at League strive for civil engagement, and we will ask you to be civil with one another. Here is, and I think I've told you all this, but I'm not going to hide or, disguise my strategy for using young people as our moderators. I find that when it's young people moderating, the adults in the room act like adults instead of children. So what does that tell you? It's really the adults who are children and the children who are adults, but that's a whole other topic. They just act nicer. When they see a young person putting themselves out there the way they know you guys are putting yourself out there, they just get nicer. So that's one of the reasons I really love to use young people as moderators. The other reason is I feel like I've had my chance, I've had my experience, and if somebody wants this experience, I want to be able to give it to them. We don't take questions from the floor. But if you did, you would have to be able to handle that. And I just don't like questions from the floor. Now, I will say I have done community forums, and we are planning on doing some community forums on race for District 21 that you guys might, you know, if you're available, you might be able to moderate for us. And in this case, we may end up taking questions from the floor. But this is one where you have to, what I do when I take questions from the floor is I tell everybody, listen, I'm going to time you. I'm going to, for a minute, and I'm not going to hold you to that time, but just so that we can all be respectful of each other's time. That keeps people on task and more focused on, instead of getting speechifying. And then you always, like, if you were to take questions from the floor, you want them to state their name, use a microphone unless they're me and don't need a microphone. And then, so the only time that we would do questions from the floor is if we were doing a community forum of some kind. So for instance, we did the village, or the city of Prospect Heights was trying to get home rule passed. And so they hosted a series of community forums where the community could come and ask the elected officials about home rule. And I came in and moderated that for them. So that, because we didn't have a dog in the fight. I don't live in Prospect Heights. I am nonpartisan, and it just added that, plus it gets our name out there. Sometimes you know, as in this case, then you might repeat the question, clarify the question. You know, you can say something like, just to be clear, what I heard was, and repeat it. Does that make sense? So in that case, you would want to have something to keep, you know, to take notes with. I would definitely make sure you have a pencil, paper with you at these events. Or some way, if you're better off, you know, using technology like an iPad or a phone, you can do that as well. I'm not going to tell you what works for you. So you want to keep any opinion out of your face and your voice. That's the hard one. Louisa, here's where we act, right? Because there will be idiotic things said in a candidate forum. And you are going to want to react because you cannot believe that you are hearing come out of the mouth of an adult what you are hearing. But you have to stay neutral, absolutely neutral. And then again, be fair, be firm, be competent. They have more at stake than you do. And then be, you know, considerate of your audience. You know, you want to get the audience on your side. And I think that it's easy for you guys to begin because you're young. And so use that to your advantage. I kind of do the opposite thing. I make a lot of jokes about being an MAOL, a middle-aged old lady. And it's that just a way of self-deprecating to try to get the audience on my side. And, you know, a lot of appreciate people for coming and taking their time and all of that other stuff. So you guys have done speech, you know, you're going to be a little nervous. You know how to prep. The best thing I can tell you is to breathe, right? I mean, Felix is so tired of hearing this, but in through the nose, out through the mouth. Your breath automatically, when you slow your breathing down, it slows your heart rate down. And when you slow your heart rate down, it automatically relaxes you, okay? Remember, again, the candidates have more at stake than you do. People aren't going to notice. It's like when you have a little zit and you think everybody sees it, nobody really notices it. The audience does, this is true, they want you to do well. especially in your case. We, as adults, we see young people and we go, we are cheering for you. We want you to really do well. And never apologize. Those of you who have heard my pitch to young women know we apologize ourselves to death. We are volunteers. We are doing our best. There's nothing to apologize for, right? And you can say that. I'm doing my best, and we're just going to keep on rolling, okay? And you might, at the beginning, Felix, if you want to say something about the technology and, you know, if something happens with the technology, we're just all going to hope that we're going to get back together. And then most candidate forums, you can plan 2 hours. I know that we are longer this weekend than normal because we've got, you know, we're doing an hour, then we're taking a break and then doing another hour. But you won't have to be on screen that whole time. We'll start, I start the webinar a half an hour beforehand. And you are gonna wanna be like there at least 15 minutes, 10 minutes beforehand, because you're going to want to meet the candidates. You're going to want to decide who goes first. You know, all of that. We're going to want to make sure our tech is working, that I've not screwed anything up. And then just like in speech, you want to think about how you're dressed and how you're presenting. The great thing is you can wear pajama bottoms and just, you know, your suit and tie or whatever it is. I mean, you don't have to worry about what's going on underneath. Now, Felix, one of the things I've got to get back from Kat is I've got a background, a league background that I'm going to give each of you so that you can have a logo behind you someplace, okay?
I totally forgot that that's still at my house. I will drop that off tomorrow.
Oh, do you mind dropping it off? I appreciate it.
Is it at your house is okay?
Yes, please, and thank you.
Okay. I'll text you before I'm coming. I could leave it at your front door if that works.
Thank you. It's a great thing about my front porch. It's nice and safe. So, you know, these are things that you guys know because you've been on speech team. You've done lots of public presentations, but you want to sit tall. I talk too much with my hands. I think you guys are better than I am at that. And again, that tone of voice. I just have, I think, my particular tone of voice happens to be, people have told me that it's a little scary. There's really not much I can do with it. It is who I am. So, but I also don't get a lot of people trying to take over for me. There you go. So if you were doing an actual, you know, candidate forum, you'd really want to make sure you knew where you were going and that you had phone numbers of the people who you needed to get in touch with if something happened, and that you had good directions. You know, we've had moderators who come in from Chicago, who come in from all over, because we don't want to have somebody who lives in our area moderate these forums. And then I've given you a script. Look over that, make sure I haven't made any errors, right? I mean, sometimes I make an error. It's a good idea, you know, to at least read through the script once or twice. And then we'll go on a little bit beforehand so you can get a feel for what is going on. Typically, you know, I don't know about this. When I moderate another forum, I don't do a lot of research. I rely on the league that's hosting the forum to do that research. To me, that's their job, not mine as the moderator. But not all leagues believe that. But we are very good at making sure our moderators are prepared. And then, but you will want to make sure you can pronounce everybody's names. I don't think we've got anybody who has a hard to pronounce name.
I do have a question about the actual name. So I know there's Jan Schakowsky, but the other one, is it Sargis Sanjari?
You can ask him You can ask him before, in that half hour beforehand, how he pronounces his name.
Okay.
And
yeah,
then
also,
it'll be candidate Schakowsky and candidate Sangari or whatever he says.
Okay.
what I did.
Yeah, that's all I had.
What I did end up doing before this past forum, if you, like, for example, I didn't know how comfortable I was actually asking them how to say their names. So I found their social media, and usually they have interviews on YouTube. So if just within like the first 10 seconds, they'll say their name, and then you know how it's said without having to ask them.
Yeah, I did one in Mount Prospect with Yulia, and we had printed her name incorrectly on her placard that was in front of her. And I had the hardest time because the placard, I kept seeing it and it wasn't spelled correctly. So I was pronouncing it incorrectly and I could not get it correct. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce it now because it was just, it was horrible. Very embarrassing.
So in a live candidate forum, I mean, there are so many pieces to the puzzle that actually Zoom saves us. Like, we don't have to print name cards to have in front of everybody. We usually have little flags up there, you know, because people, I don't know, they need to see a flag. We're usually having to worry about who's recording it. I mean, there's so many things. I will say Zoom is actually, I mean, is making a candidate forum much, much easier for us.
Yeah. Once we get it down, this is the way to go.
Yeah. So anyway, we've already talked about this, their introductions, their title is just candidate. You will review with them. You will say, you know, before everything starts, I know that you have signed these rules, and I just want to confirm with you that you have 2 minutes for opening, a minute to answer each question, and then you will go in and tell them if you're going to allow any rebuttals. And if you allow a rebuttal, it's only 2. And then 2 minutes for closing. And there you go. So the welcoming remarks, that's all you, Louisa, on this one, right? So we want to be enthusiastic about League and what we do. We kind of want to sell what we do, that we're a great community organization. You don't have a lot of time. I mean, that's not really the purpose of this event, is to sell us. But we want to be positive about what we're doing. Nobody wants to join a boring organization with boring people. So, and that's the other reason I use you guys, because they see you guys on the screen and they go, oh, they're not a bunch of old ladies. So I'm super, super shady when it comes to stuff like that. I have no shame. So I will say, and I don't have this in the script, and maybe we should put that in there, but maybe Louisa, at the end, you come on and thank everybody for voting. I'll put this in the script. I'm going to put it in the script now that I'm thinking about it. We're going to thank everybody for coming, and I'm going to have you do that. Thank everybody for coming. Remind them to vote on November the 3rd, and remind them that they can go to our website to find out anything about voting, about mail-in voting, how to cast their vote early, all of it. So I'll put that in the script.
Illinois voter guide too?
Well, the Illinois voter guide is linked from our website.
Okay.
So I just want to direct them to one spot.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it was linked.
Yeah, all that stuff. So I'll put that in the script, okay, Louisa? But feel free, you know, you don't have to, this isn't, I'm not a playwright. I'm not going to, you know, you don't have to go word for word. You can ad lib a little bit. It needs to feel comfortable. That's one of the things I feel is important, that yes, we give you a script, but it has to flow. It has to feel comfortable for you. And that's the sign of a good moderator, is that somebody who isn't up there just reading a script. It's somebody who's interacting with the candidates, interacting with the audience. That's what makes a good moderator. Maintaining control, y'all got this. So we talked about candidates who go overtime. Who even knows what that word is, Felix? Obstreperous.
I do.
Yes, it is what? Is it obnoxious? No.
It's very close to obnoxious, yes. Belligerent, obnoxious, difficult.
Yeah. So that's one of the, I honestly, we've never had that. So I know that people have had them. We get shown these videos of these crazy forums. And I think, how in the world did that happen? I think because we send them the question or the rules ahead of time, and we set up all these expectations, I think that helps us. The audience, on the other hand, like I said, we have had to ask somebody to leave, but in a real live situation, you as the moderator really shouldn't have to worry about the audience. That should be the job of whoever's running that forum. And then you've got somebody like me who's about, I will body slam you. I will get you out.
And you can back them up, because if one of the candidates does become difficult, you just turn off their mic.
Yeah, yeah.
That's one of the advantages to having it on Zoom, is that if the moderator can't get them under control, we can stop it from looking like a disaster.
Yeah. And again, because of the way we take our questions, even when they're live, we don't allow people to stand up. We ask them to write it on a note card. That kind of solves a lot of your problems. But again, if this were a community forum, and I am anticipating that these community forums that we're going to be hosting for District 21, that they are going to be difficult. I will most likely moderate with a partner. Like I think that will be one that I'm going to want to do with a young person and myself, because I don't have a dog in the fight in District 21. I don't have kids, and I don't live in District 21, so I feel like I can moderate that. But that one could get contentious, so I'm not going to allow anybody to be alone on that. But again, it might also be on Zoom, and if it's on Zoom, then it makes things a lot easier. If people demand to see the questions, the answer to that is no. 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 I mean, it's not a discussion. I don't need to give you a reason why. No.
And we don't need to give them a reason why theirs wasn't asked either.
I mean, there's a limited amount of time. We do the best we can with the time that we're given. And we have to respect everyone's time, and nobody has all day for this. So then, yeah, so you'll probably, it is draining. It takes a lot out of you. I think Kat probably tells you, do you have a nap afterwards or no?
I didn't have a nap, but I did binge watch the newest season of The Umbrella Academy with my sister. So just do something fun for yourself.
For me, it's Drag Race. I'm going to binge watch some Drag Race. So anyway, so yeah, so make sure you take care of yourself. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share. Does anybody have, the one thing did you guys get a chance to go over the, let's see. No, you guys, why can't I find it? Oh, the script. Did you guys get a chance to go over that script? So a lot of the things that we, talked about, like I said, Louisa, I'm going to make an edit to this just to add in some voting information. Because it is our 100th anniversary year, I don't, and I think there's been a big deal made this year about the 19th Amendment, and the 100th anniversary of suffrage. I think it's okay to say that. And then this piece here, candidates have flipped a coin to determine speaking order. If you're going to do something different, then you just change that. Candidates have drawn straws or whatever. That's probably the hardest thing to take care of remotely, is that piece. Don't you think, Kat?
Yes, I agree.
But you handled it really well by just doing that virtual coin toss. I think the only other thing I might do is I would say, candidate Morrison, your heads, candidate Trevor, your tails, and then, yeah, I don't know. Anyways, there's probably no right way to do it.
It's really up to you guys. And I know I just Googled like coin flip generator and I clicked on the first one. I thought it was helpful to show them like on the screen so they could see my phone just in case there was any questions about what, I mean, I'm not going to rig their choices, but just so for prosperity's sake.
Mm-hmm. Usually what we do if it's live is you just have numbers, right, in a bowl and they draw a number, 1 or 2. That's it. But in this case, we can't do that. All right. So there you go. Those are the numbers. They're going to send questions to this cell phone number or this email. We volunteers review them for clarity, appropriateness, and to avoid duplication. That's an important one, avoid duplication. We don't need to ask the same question 5 times. They've been asked not to interrupt one another. So you say all of that, Louisa, and then Felix, you're going to go on to not just to introduce the candidates, but our ASL interpreter, Stacy Shine Stapleton, who as of today, I don't have a confirmation from, so hopefully that doesn't change. Our league board member, Connie Weissman, and then that we have disabled the chat. And then you'd have to fill in the blank about whoever won, and then all of this. And then I'm gonna also get you a grid for this. All right? Any questions?
I noticed at the top, it says, or not in the top, but like the procedures, it says candidates will be given, oh, okay, never mind, I read that wrong. Sorry. It's been a
I know
really
you
had the SAT this.
what'd you do? Or you're frozen.
Oh, okay, there we go. I think I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a long day. I had the SAT this morning and yeah, so I am just like so out of it.
August supposed to take the SAT today?
There's one in October too. So
Oh, the October one. Okay. Cool. I wasn't going to have him take it because he's got the score on the ACT he wants.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, you have to. You don't have a choice.
Yeah, it's a graduation requirement. So
That blows. I'm sorry. That has nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
I can stop recording. Okay. Any